The Southeast Dubois School Board has finalized its budget. More on that, plus Northeast Dubois school officials continue the push to avoid having to go to a referendum, and Republican Jasper City Council District 3 candidate John Bell is tonight's guest for Meet the Candidates on Informed. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin with Dubois County Sheriff's deputies taking a Huntingburg man into custody on local charges after serving a warrant from Spencer County on him. Sheriff's deputies went to the residence of 21-year-old Maurice Zapata in the 3000 block of Anthony Court in Huntingburg. Deputies say they were serving a Spencer County warrant on Zapata for possession of paraphernalia. Now, when they arrived at the residence, deputies smelled burnt marijuana inside. A search found marijuana, controlled substances that police say were not prescribed to him, and paraphernalia including digital scales. After getting a search warrant through Dubois at Circuit Court, deputies were able to find methamphetamine along with 36 syringes in a child's room. Police say the child was not home during the search. Deputies then notified the Dubois County Department of Child Services about the incident, and a short time later, Zapata was taken and booked into the Dubois County Security Center. Zapata is facing several drug-related felonies. These include level 6 felonies for possession of paraphernalia with a prior conviction, maintaining a common nuisance, and possession of methamphetamine. Also, Zapata is facing a level 5 felony for illegal possession of syringes, a level 4 felony for dealing methamphetamine, and misdemeanors for possession of marijuana and illegal possession of a Schedule II controlled substance. Board members and officials with the Southeast Dubois School Corporation have completed the final touches on the district's next spending plan. Last night, final approval was given for the corporation's 2016 budget, along with the 2016 to 18 capital project plan and the 2016 to 2027 school bus replacement plan. All are included in local property taxes, but the state requires that they each be acted on separately. Now, back in August, the Southeast Dubois Superintendent Rick Allen presented the board a roughly $11 million total budget proposal, about the same as this year. Allen says the numbers have not changed since they were first introduced 2 months ago, with the maximum tax levy at around $4 million. The tax rate will be the same as this year's was, which came in at $1.07 per $100 of assessed value. Allen says the budget numbers will help fulfill the corporation's needs while not asking more out of the district's taxpayers.
The state legislature has tied our hands on almost every fund. There's a capital projects fund, a property tax fund, but it's rate capped. Bus replacement fund is a levy capped fund. You're not allowed to raise any more dollars than that. What's nice is our assessed value in our community, which is majorly a manufacturing-based community, continues to grow. So that lessens the burden on everyone, which makes it nice because our tax rate falls inadvertently. But we still get the same amount of dollars. We can't increase it. We can't lower it. It's always the same.
Now, the state of Indiana has touted $474 million in new funding for K-12 schools as part of the recently passed 2-year budget. Allen says the Southeast Dubois District's next 2 budgets will see a boost of around $56,000 each year as a result of the funding. He says the district currently receives about $7.3 million from the state. Next year's Southeast Dubois budget was advertised through an online service known as Gateway. Allen says the service is part of new state procedure designed to basically keep up with the times. Of course, the budget was also advertised in local newspapers. A public hearing on the budget was held last month with no public comment. It will now be sent to the Department of Local Government Finance for their final approval. A local doctor who previously ran for state office is now going to try his hand at running for national office. Yesterday, Dr. Richard Moss of Jasper announced his plans to run against 8th District Congressman Larry Bhushan in the 2016 Republican primary. Moss made the announcement during the Evansville Fall Festival last night, and it was also posted on his campaign website. In a statement on his campaign website, Moss stated he is running because he is disgusted with what he calls the hapless stand-for-nothing Republican Party. Moss says the party has recently dropped the ball on a number of issues, specifically pointing to the national debt, Obamacare, the EPA, the Supreme Court, ISIS, TPP, securing the border, and the recent nuclear deal with Iran that Moss calls horrendous. Moss went on to say that Republican leadership needs to be defeated and called Bhushan one of former House Speaker John Boehner's loyal foot soldiers. In closing, Moss stated that Indiana's 8th District needs a true conservative Republican who will fight for American workers, citizens, and America itself. Moss says with your help, he will be that representative. Of course, this is not the first time Moss has run for public office. He ran against fellow Republican Mike Braun in the 2014 primary election for the District 63 state representative's nomination. Braun handily defeated Moss by a margin of 67% to 33%. The margin was also large here in Dubois County, with Braun winning the vote by a 77 to 23% margin. Speaking of Congressman Bhushan, the Congressman has announced plans to hold a pair of town halls in Dubois and Daviess counties coming up next week. Officials with the Congressman's office say the events will give Hoosiers a chance to hear from Bhushan about issues facing the state of Indiana, the rest of the country, and Congress. Again, those are coming up next week. The one in Dubois County will be held next Tuesday at the CTIM building on the Vincennes University Jasper campus. The Daviess County Forum will take place at the Washington Park Community Building in the 500 block of Burkhart Drive in Washington. Both town halls run from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, both events are open to the public. This starts the second round of public appearances for Bhushan. Back in August, the Congressman held a series of town halls, listening sessions, and office hours. Those were in Knox, Crawford, Owen, Park, Clay, Vigo, Spencer, and Vanderburgh counties. The Northeast Dubois School Corporation's feasibility study aims to avoid a referendum, and Superintendent Bill Hoaksong is among those voicing his concerns. Hoaksong says the idea may or may not gain traction among area voters, and he also says the chances of it working long-term are slim to none.
That's a mixed message, and I don't know. I don't know if that's a solution. That would only be a short-term solution anyway. So even if we did something like that, it's a short-term solution. We still have to make some other changes.
Of course, the school corporation hosted a public hearing on new ideas to help the district's financial woes Tuesday evening. During his short speech at that hearing, Hoaksong mentioned that since 2009, more than 200 school districts in Indiana have run referendums. He says that statistic is startling and raises even more questions than answers.
I know our legislatures are telling us they're putting the most ever into education, but is it enough? And that's a big concern for me, because I think this is a glaring example of what's going on out in the schools. You know, there's only 292 school corporations, yet there's over 200 referendums. You know, are we properly funding education?
Now, more than 400 people showed up to Tuesday night's forum to voice an opinion. Several of them stood up to speak, and Hoaksong says many people praised the corporation for its recent efforts in technology. However, Hoaksong says many people were adamant about keeping both elementary schools open and not consolidating. Consolidation was an idea laid out by administrator assistants who was leading the feasibility study on the school's behalf. Now, a second public forum is coming up this upcoming Tuesday, October 13th at Dubois Middle School. It'll get underway at 6 p.m. The feasibility study as a whole is expected to cost around $20,000 to complete, and school officials are hoping to have the study done by late December, with findings to be made public at the board's January meeting. Tuesday's announcement of broadband internet coming to Huntingburg marks the end of a long process for Perry Spencer Communications. Company officials and the city have been talking for several years about the idea. PSC President and CEO Jim Dubois says other successful broadband build-outs in the area helped to spark the Huntingburg project.
We did Ferdinand back in 2007, went extremely well, but we're very cautious on how we use our resources. The next one we didn't initiate until Tell City until later in 2012, which we're wrapping up. The same thing, all the residents, both of those are 100% overbills of the entire communities, and they have access to all of our services. So I'd like to think we have an impressive track record.
Dubois says the projects have all been C-leg overbills. C-leg stands for Competitive Local Exchange Carrier and is a procedure where PSC takes their products and overbuilds a network from them, much like AT&T and Time Warner do. Now, broadband will be a new city utility in Huntingburg, like we told you on Tuesday. PSC will be working with city utilities in the design and build out of the project, which begins in the spring of 2016. Dubois says the project is expected to cost around $3 million in all, based on past experience with broadband build-outs. Of course, the announcement was a momentous one for Huntingburg, but also for state officials continuing to work towards broadband connectivity in rural areas. Lieutenant Governor Sue Ellspermann was not able to attend Tuesday morning, but she did send along a congratulatory letter, one that Mayor Denny Spinner read during the announcement.
After visiting with Hoosiers in all 92 Indiana counties, it was no surprise to learn that access to high-speed internet was a critical issue for many smaller towns and rural areas. Last year, Secretary of Commerce Victor Smith and I convened the Rural Broadband Working Group to explore that issue and raise awareness. The recommendations, including broadband-ready communities, are being implemented to encourage more investment by providers. I am grateful that PSC is making the investment in your community. The leadership team at PSC has exhibited a sustained commitment to expand the network throughout their service area.
State officials say rural broadband will remain one of their top priorities. Now, the rural broadband issue has also become noteworthy on the national level. Back in July of last year, the Federal Communications Commission adopted a $100 million budget for rural broadband efforts. And finally tonight, Secretary of State John Kerry is set to speak at Indiana University next week during an event to mark the opening of the new building for IU's School of Global and International Studies. The university says Kerry will speak about U.S. foreign policy priorities during the October 15th event on the Bloomington campus. Kerry will be the first sitting Secretary of State to visit IU in 20 years. IU opened its new Global and International Studies building in August for programs that include 250 faculty members who study worldwide issues and teach about 70 different languages. Kerry has been Secretary of State since early 2013 after 28 years as a U.S. Senator from Massachusetts. He was the 2004 Democratic nominee for president. All right, coming up after the break, a sunny weekend forecast, and John Bell is tonight's Meet the Candidates guest for Inform. We're back after this.